In its first year, Claude Code made $2.5 billion from nothing, which was unprecedented for us as a team. And I believe at this point, we're about 51% of the coding market. We used to gate product quality decisions at like a discussion level, at a mock. You'd look at a mock or like a Figma, and that's when you'd make a decision on, is this the right quality? And we've now pushed that decision-making into live working code. Titles don't really matter at all anymore. I am pushing code to production. My engineers are designing. I kind of think we're very fluid, and it depends mostly on what we're building. I'm a very big believer that I think anyone should be able to ship to production and anyone should be able to build. I mean, that's the whole point of Claude Code.
Hey, this is Carlos, CEO at Product School and your host on the Product Podcast. Today's guest is Meaghan Choi, Head of Design for Claude Code and Cowork at Anthropic. This episode is special. It was recorded live on stage at ProductCon New York, the AI conference that we host 3 times a year in San Francisco, New York, and London. Anthropic just closed a $65 billion Series H round at a valuation approaching $1 trillion and has crossed $30 billion in annualized revenue, driven largely by enterprise demand. Claude Code alone became generally available in May 2025 and reached $2.5 billion in annualized revenue in February 2026, with that figure more than doubling since the beginning of 2026. In our conversation, we cover Claude Code's evolution from an internal feature into one of the fastest growing revenue products in history, Anthropic's secret sauce to shipping products at an incredibly high cadence while ensuring quality, how product teams get structured into small pods of 5 AI builders, and the fleet of agents where non-engineers ship code into production, driving enterprise adoption through PLG from technical teams, how organizations can measure AI ROI beyond AI adoption and token usage, designing user interfaces for agentic capabilities, including CLI. Let's get into it.
I usually do these interviews at home. Pretty cool.
Yeah, this is incredible. What a turnout.
Welcome to the Product Podcast at ProductCon New York, man.
Yeah, it feels amazing. It's incredible to be here right now. I'm so excited.
So, head of design at Claude Code and Claude Cowork.
I lead design for Claude Code and Cowork, which is crazy to say and crazy to be here even like now. I'm always shocked from where we started like a year and a half ago, 12 people in a room, wondering if this product would even be a thing, wondering if people would use CLI, and now like one of the most popular dev tools in the world. It's insane.
I have a couple of fun facts for you. I had to read them because this is incredible. So, have the most female-led product org in tech right now. Your Chief Product Officer. Your Chief Product Officer, your Head of Product, your Head of Engineering, your Head of Platform Product, your Head of Platform Engineering, and your President.
Yes. Yeah. It's amazing. I think, honestly, a lot of us didn't even think too much about it until we were watching some of the Code with Claude talks and realizing, wow, like the industry really recognized that. And it just happened so naturally, just based off of the culture and the values that we have at Anthropic, that we just have an incredible leadership team and they all happen to be women. But it's pretty nice to be a part of, I have to say.
So I want to go back to the early days when Claude Code wasn't even considered a product. Like, how did that happen, and what was true in order for Claude Code to actually graduate into a product category?
Yeah, so Claude Code started as a side project with a few different engineers of the team who were exploring, like back in 2024, I want to say, what it would look like to have Claude write code for you. Because at the time, if you can all remember, we were still doing a lot of copying and pasting into like a chat and then copying and pasting back into your editor, or maybe tab to autocomplete if you're using it. But Claude actually couldn't act on your behalf. And then there was a little bit of a breakthrough moment where someone piloted an experience of doing this via CLI, which has access to everything in your computer. And they posted a video of it in our internal Slack feeds. And like a few people looked at it, myself included, I was like, holy crap, this is it. This is incredible. But it took like an hour to set up. It was extremely difficult to use. It didn't really work exactly the way you want it to look. I would say it's probably 6 months early for the models that we wanted it to be powered by, but there was signs of life there. And so the team spent a lot of effort, like making it more usable, tuning the UX. The next 3 months are really releasing it internally and trying to get as much internal uses as possible. We really believe that if we could build a tool that everyone at Anthropic would want to use, then we'd build a tool that we think could be really useful for people in the industry as well. And it was like a tireless iteration of like following people around, watching them use it, fixing bugs. My first interaction with the product was actually helping do some design iterations on it. But at the time, CLI design was so new that it was all in Google Docs because that was like the best representation you could have of what a CLI would look like.
So before during my talk, I was sharing some of the insights on top companies that had to transform into AI native. Your company was born AI native, so I'm curious to kind of pick your brain on a couple of things. First of all, the concept of builder. Like, how are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I think transparently, we're all kind of learning what this looks like together. Like we're growing as an industry as we grow this technology. But a few big shifts have happened within the team. The first I would say is that our titles don't really matter at all anymore. Like what role you come in, like I am pushing code to production, my engineers are designing, I'm not involved in every feature. I kind of think we're very fluid and it depends mostly on what we're building. And so I would say my ideal team size and shape is probably 3 to 5 people in a pod. And that can be 5 engineers, could be 4 engineers and a designer, could be 2 designers and 3 engineers. It could be 2 PMs and 3 engineers. It could be a PM and 4 engineers. And everyone is sprinting forward together to get something that's actually working in code. And you're contributing in all the different ways and all the different skill sets that you bring. And then the goal from there is to like use it yourselves and get other people to use it. And that's how you build conviction. And I think of titles a little bit as like a specialty you might bring to the team and some that people might ask you, but it doesn't delineate what you can contribute to the project.
So it sounds like you have a small pot of people. The general term could be builder. The background can be different, design, engineering, product, and you can feed them probably with less than 2 pizzas, right? But in terms of the shipping cadence, right? Like you are mentioning that you can ship, a PM, a non-engineer can ship. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'm a very big believer that I think anyone should be able to ship to production and anyone should be able to build. I mean, that's the whole point of Claude Code. And what we actually like, if you're nervous about that or if it's stressful, I think what you can actually invest in is like good code review, good CI, good testing to make sure that like code that goes into your production app is verified and reviewed. When I think about everyone building and launching products, for me, the biggest thing that I think I had to become more flexible with was the idea of like product quality and polish. Like as a designer, it's sometimes really hard to let features go out that I haven't touched, or maybe that don't necessarily have the most 100% polished version of what I'd want it to be. But once you start operating in this way, you really get a sense that with the power of AI, everyone can do everything in the same way that engineers are inviting us into code right now. I think as designers, I invite other people to help design. Product managers should help invite everyone to make PM decisions and product decisions. And in that sense, it's all like a shared responsibility. And so when it comes to the decision of when it's ready to ship, it's actually the pods team to decide first, is this good enough that we're using it, that we want to release it to the rest of the team internally? And then once we have enough people using it internally and we have feedback, we look for a specific number of internal users, daily active users, who are like truly adopting these products into the workflow. And once we see that growth, then we'll release it externally.
So it sounds like you are customer zero, right? Like you release to your company first. If there's enough traction, then you decide to open up the gates.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in terms of the bottleneck, so if shipping is not the bottleneck anymore, given that now other people can contribute code, then where is the bottleneck in terms of ensuring quality? It's like there was a image of Claude going viral saying, this is all the stuff that Anthropic released in the last few weeks. And it's insane, right?
Yeah, I think there's 2 things that I think about there. The first is that I do think working at an AI lab in particular, and if you have an experience working in emerging tech, didn't have to be in AI. There's a lot of like technical developments like AR, VR, spatial computing that have happened along the way. The iteration of like shipping a product very quickly and learning is by nature part of new tech development. And I think it's important to keep up with that speed. So in that sense, it should feel overwhelming and we're not going to get everything right, but we kind of like to build and test in the open, especially for technology. I find our users often help us find what works fastest, but you don't necessarily need to adopt everything. When it comes to maintaining product quality, I think this is the part that's a little bit uncomfortable in our day and age. We used to gate product quality decisions at like a discussion level or at a mock. Like you'd look at a PRD and that's when you'd make a decision. You'd look at a mock or like a Figma and that's when you'd make a decision on, is this the right quality? And we've now pushed that decision making into live working code. You need to be using it yourself. You need to see experience the product in its actual workflow. And that's when you make a decision on quality because it's so much more reflective of what the actual experience is going to be. And in the end, you actually find out like the learnings are that much richer. But it's uncomfortable to push people to build it first and then iterate on the quality rather than like do all the iterations beforehand. It's like a flip on the head of how we work.
I'm sure there's a lot of people in the audience right now freaking out. They're like, okay, a lot of like CPOs, VPs of product and large enterprises, financial services, healthcare, retail saying we're heavily regulated. Yet I see that most of your customers actually come from large enterprises, right? So tell me more about how you're able to create that level of adoption.
Yeah. So I think Claude Code, I mean, this is pretty special for developer products, I think, but we're primarily community driven, I would say. The way that we've really been able to expand into enterprises is we'll have individual developers who are using the product in their personal projects and their side projects, and then they'll become advocates internally for expanding Claude Code usage within their organizations. But the really interesting thing about like Claude Code and a lot of AI products in general, if you build them as platforms, is that the more people who use them, the better the experience gets for everyone. And what that really means is as you have a team of engineers starting to spin up on using Claude Code or Cowork or any of these agentic tools, they'll start to build infrastructure around it. Like their dev prod team will be highly motivated to support custom tooling, connectors to all of your databases, all of your internal infrastructure. And by getting access to that, it actually makes using Claude Code and all these tools even more effective. And then it's just a cycle of like everyone building things for themselves that help build things for each other, and then so on and so forth. And then as you expand even into other functions, like at Anthropic, all the designers use Claude Code, all the product, like all our finance team uses Claude Code, everyone's really using it. You start to then extend it into other skill sets that then multiply your ability to learn those skills as well.
I want to double click on that because what you are saying sounds to me like the POG motion that a lot of companies started, but as they start going more enterprise, they also had to develop more of a top-down approach, right? So you mentioned that developers tend to be like the early adopters and then you expand from within. It must get to a point where someone raises their hand and say, but we are using another tool and this is kind of too risky for us. So like, how do you go about in kind of providing the type of peace of mind to some people who are maybe more risk averse?
Yeah, I think there's a few things. The first is by the design of the package of Claude Code, it's actually extremely hackable and extremely safe. So the bundle in itself as a tool meets all of those requirements already. And so that was actually an easy way to get a lot of enterprises already adopting Claude Code without needing to go through really intense review. I think as we're going into larger enterprises, we are learning and adding more controls and more visibility into our platform. And we're a young company, so we're learning by doing. We scaled faster than any of us imagined, but it hasn't really been a hurdle right now. I think it's more the opposite right now, where like everyone wants to use Claude Code and we're trying as hard as possible to make it as easy as possible to access.
That's incredible that you have the opposite problem. At the same time, like one of the things that I notice is that you're trying to also integrate with a lot of other tools, systems of record. The point is that it seems like a central spot for companies to come collaborate, right? So a lot of other companies, especially SaaS companies, almost had to give up on the UI as a moat to focus more on the data and be like, okay, maybe the UI cannot always be their own product. It can be another interface. So for you as a designer, curious to know how you're thinking about the user interfaces.
Yeah. I generally feel that like the user interface is just a medium to access the technology. I'm by nature a little bit of a minimalist. Like I think like what you actually want is the purest form of technology. It's why I loved the CLI, because I think is truly the thinnest wrapper you could have around our models. And that's really what people want access to when they're building. I generally think we need to be more open-minded as an industry, as a function, into what it really means to build a UI and like if it's even valuable at the same time. Because at the end of the day, what you're really trying to get to is like a work product or an output. And I think that is actually a lot more important than the intermediary tooling is what we're actually building right now to get you there. And so all the tools that we build right now are really just ways for you to communicate to your devices or your services what you want that output to be. But if we could just focus on that final output and just work based off of that, I feel like it's a lot of a faster way to develop. And that's what a lot of AI tooling is focused on.
I come from a technical background. I thought I would never use CLI again in my life. Here I am. So I'm very curious to know what your take on this. Is this a temporary interface where you believe it's going to evolve into something that looks more like an elaborated environment? Or do you think that the CLI is cool again and is here to stay?
I think the CLI is still an extremely important interface because it's one that connects the most with all the operations and all the information on your computer already. And it's really integrated into the dev stack today. And so in that sense, I do think it's one that like just works out of the box. As we're expanding, I think, into more non-engineering, or as I consider myself as like the semi-technical audience, where a lot of the work products or kind of tooling that we use isn't necessarily only on our computer. We're starting to introduce new products like Cowork, for example, which are a little bit easier to use. I mean, if any of you have used a CLI, you know it's not easy. Like it's a whole new learning curve to get to. And so I do think that it's a great place for engineering and coding work. I love using the CLI. I'm a CLI diehard user. But I also think like the desktop app for Claude Code and Cowork are really making it more accessible for more people.
I'm also curious about the people managers in the organization, obviously yourself included. Like one of the things I mentioned is that a lot of companies are not only removing management layers, but also expecting that those people managers act as player coaches. So to what degree do you expect that your people managers are also building?
All of the people managers at Anthropic build, I design. I personally have a principle that I think it's always helpful if you're joining a company or at a company to know what the shipping motion looks like. Now more than ever with AI, just because the process looks so different, I think going through that experience yourself is actually really important. So you can build the muscle and understand like what tooling and what training to invest in for your team. And then I think I kind of see all of my team and a lot of like the individual contributors at the company like mini managers right now, because everyone's kind of managing a fleet of Claudes that are also working. And so in the same way that like you as a people manager might manage people, you're also managing Claude. So it's a little bit of like moving up the chain, I guess is the analogy I would give.
All right. I mean, you're still managing agents anyway.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about money. We're in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two questions about it. One is the ROI of AI. Like we've heard that, of course, a lot of companies, a lot of people are already using AI. Adoption doesn't seem to be a strong enough indicator of value for the business. So how are you thinking about ways to actually measure the value of AI?
Yeah, I think transparently, we're all pretty early in this journey. Like the analogy I like to give is back previously when like engineering companies used to evaluate IC engineers by lines of code or like PRs committed. And then over time, we learned that's not necessarily the best measure of someone's contributions. I think we're kind of in a similar era right now where we can see that this technology is providing us a lot of value. And we also want to see more of our teams adopting this technology because we know it does accelerate their work, but by how much should they be using it? I think it's hard. The two tactical things I say are that token usage, I think, is primarily a good indicator of someone not using AI. Like if it's zero, that should be a concern. But I don't think anyone should be competing over who's using the most tokens because transparently, it's very easy to actually use an infinite number of tokens and not do any work at all. But I also think that there are automations that you can set up that do use a lot of tokens that do reward and do actually give a lot of value. And so I don't know if tokens is the right measure of like general ROI, but it's a good leading indicator that we have right now. And then I do think as an industry, we should start to invest in what this looks like. I still go back to the original impact metrics. Like what is the adoption? What is the retention? What is the revenue? Like those all still hold true no matter if you're using AI or not. And those are the things we should really be looking at.
Already. And just to wrap it up, I mean, your product, Claude Code, is one of the fastest growing products in terms of revenue and adoption. And you're at a scale now where it's really hard to maintain that type of percentage digit-wise. So how do you keep that momentum?
Yeah. To add some numbers there that I always find a little bit fun. So in its first year, Claude Code made $2.5 billion from nothing, which was outstanding, like unprecedented for us as a team. And I believe at this point, we're about 51% of the coding market. I think that it feels like we're so early in this journey. Like we are just at 1% and there's so much more to go that like for us on the team, it doesn't actually feel like we've succeeded or we're at the end. It feels like we've only just put our foot in the door of what's possible. And every day we're prototyping new things. Every day we're trying new ways of working with AI that kind of flip everything that we know on our head and like change all of the assumptions that we have about work. That I think the real skill here is actually to be flexible and not to hold anything too dear and like live curiously and build curiously right now, because it is gonna keep changing. It's changed already so much over the past few months, and all you can do is like be excited, because I do think building right now is so fun, and finding ways to make building even more fun is kind of what brings us joy on the team.
Meaghan, it's been awesome to have you here as you call yourself a builder as well, but literally the only designer on stage with us today. Let's give it up for Meaghan. Thank you.
Thank you so much.